And the subtitle is Nadi Astrology, World Predictions, and Siddhas Light Bodies. And I'd sent this chapter summaries to all of you. So the subtitle actually is a key one-liner for the content of the book, because a lot of my book concentrates on the ancient palm leaf manuscripts of India, which is Nadi Astrology. And then there's world predictions that came in those, I had predictions, obviously personal predictions, but also the world predictions that came in those ancient palm leaves of India. And then it drove me to understand. So then because I was learning the Nadi Shastra, the ancient palm leaves of India, I decided to also look into who are the authors, right? It's the Rishis, the ancient sages of India, that wrote on these palm leaves thousands of years ago, to study what gave them the ability to give such precisions about people and events thousands of years into the future. I mean, obviously they transcend time. So that is the one-liner I thought would be the best subtitle for my book. I'm gonna go scroll down first to my bio so you know who Vinita is, and then it's not in that thing, but you can read along if you like, but I'll just paraphrase here. I was born in India, and I've traveled a lot. When I was 9 years old, my family moved to Africa, and then we were there. But while we were there, my parents sent me to boarding school in Nainital, in India, to a Catholic school, boarding school there. And then I came back to Africa, did some homeschooling, and I came to the US to do my bachelor's. And I did my bachelor's in computer science. I was in SUNY Plattsburgh, and then I transferred to Iowa State. And I also did a minor in comparative religions, and I've also studied psychology, and I just like to learn. So I've done a lot of learning since I was young. And I think since I was a teenager, I started picking up the Gita and Upanishads and reading Vivekanand, and who was my favorite, and all that started at a very young age. And then, even while I was in the US, I went to Shankaracharya Peetham, which is on the East Coast in Pennsylvania, to spend my summer. So it was just a lot of inclination towards spiritual and, religious things. And just to cut the story short, because I did a lot of, like I said, a lot of learning over the years and a lot of spiritual practice and reading and all that. But then I started writing. I think this was probably after 2012, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. But my first book was after a 2-year intensive study with the Chinmaya Mission, which focuses on Advaita Vedanta, as you may know. I wrote my first book, Eternal Way to Bliss, which was a summary of the Gita and the Upanishads, that 2-year study that I did with Chinmaya Mission. So make it easy, accessible knowledge to everyone. And it's a very small book, but it kind of summarizes everything. And then my second book was a shift from knowledge into devotion. So it was on what I feel is my true nature is devotion. So I wrote on devotion. And then I again switched and I wrote this very easy to read fiction, but it's a spiritual fiction called Dance of Duality. And it's about a Kashmiri woman and her life of, it's sort of my autobiography, but it's written in fiction, so I can play more with the story. And so that was well received. And I then chanced upon this whole Nadi, and then I'll segue into 24. So in 2024, what happened is, and this is how my book starts. In 2024 is when I was at a retreat in Texas for a spiritual master called Sri M. And because of some issues or problems like everyone does in their life, I was meditating at the grotto for Mahavatar Babaji. If you don't know who he is, he's a very famous character from Paramahansa Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And so I was meditating in that grotto in front of his statue, and I put a sort of message to him on my phone and put it at his feet. And I said, please give me a solution. And then when I walked out from the grotto and I went and I was having lunch outside the dining hall, there was a group of men who were talking, and there was this one man there who was narrating his story about how he had this incredibly disability, not a disability, but this huge health problem, a serious health problem where, he couldn't breathe properly. He had a lot of inflammation in his lungs and everything, and he was having cortisones and things. And how he found out about these palm leaves of India, ancient palm leaves of India, and he followed the remedies that were given and the predictions that were made. It said, if you do these pujas and if you do this chanting of these mantras, at the year's end, you'll be 30% better. And after a year, he was not 30% better, he was 90% better. And the doctors could not understand how did this man recover without, and then they stopped all his cortisone, all his medications, and he was fine. So, because I'm from a scientific background, I like to make sure that I test the truth, to make sure that it's not, something fake, or it's me imagining, or it's not subjective. And so he helped me get to my first Nadi reading. And my first Nadi reading was actually not through him, but it just so happened I was talking to a boarding school friend of mine, and she also mentioned at the same time that she had her Nadi read in person in New Delhi. And, I had this bad experiencing of going through two fake Nadi readers who were getting information from me and, making up astrology. It was really astrology that they were doing and telling me it's Nadi. So then she told me that, no, he didn't ask me for any information. And I just gave my thumb impression. And then, I found my leaf. And, I started researching and reading a lot about Nadi, even before my first Nadi reading. And then on May 19th, which was my mother's birthday, my first leaf was found. So what you do is you give your thumb impression. It's men is the right thumb, women is the left thumb. And that's all you do. You don't give them even your first name. You don't give them any information. And then depending on the thumbprint impression pattern, they have 108 categories of patterns. And they will say, okay, it's pattern number 98. And then they'll pick out the bundle for that pattern and category. And then they will start reading each leaf. It's like how you would read a record in a database. So, in a database, a record would start with a primary key, like you would have whatever it is. Like, for example, if it's a person, it would be the name, or anything you'll have on a driver's license or a passport: name, date of birth, husband's name, parents' name, children, whatever it is. They would start reading the ID of that person. And then you say yes, yes, yes. And as soon as you say no to one key field, they'll go to the next record. And so they keep reading. And then he read through the first bundle, couldn't find, second bundle, could find. And then he says, ma'am, it's not there. And I'm like, okay, it's not my destiny. I said, but I have another bundle. Let me come back. And so he called me back after 15 minutes with a third bundle. And then when he started reading the leaf, everything was exactly right on. Your father's name is the name of Makanchor, which is Krishna. I said, yes. Your mother's name is Hem Lata. And that's when I was really shocked, because my mother's name on the passport is Hem Dubey. And everywhere on all the legal papers, it's Hem Dubey. But her birth name, which only I knew, I think even my brother doesn't know that her actual name at birth was given as Hem Lata. So this is something nobody can even search on the internet, okay? And So I was convinced this is definitely spooky. How on earth would somebody know that her name is Hemlata? And so then he read my leaf, and then I, read my predictions. So then what they do is they read predictions for the rest of your life, and they give both, guidance as to what may happen, and also remedies. So the way the Nadi's approach is that they will, it's similar to Jyotish. It's very similar to Jyotish, where they're using the same principles as Jyotish, as Vedic astrology, because it's the same Rishis, who wrote the Jyotish. It's the same sages. So it's the same study of predictions, of knowing when certain karma will fructify, and they will give you the cause of why that is happening. So it'll say it's a past life, it's because of your ancestral baggage, it's because of the planetary positions, or whatever it is. They will tell you the root cause. And then, in addition to telling you, you might have a health issue or a relationship issue or whatever it is, they will also give certain solutions. And they will, certain karma can be reduced or removed. Not all, but some can be reduced or removed, but some you have to experience and go through. So after my reading was done, of course, I did the remedies and everything. Now, everything that is said in the Nadi and is true about life is that the future is a probability. It's not fatalistic, it's not deterministic, right? So what is said there is dependent on many, many variables. It depends on what you do, on what other people are doing, what a collective karma is happening, so many things. But basically, what I meant to say is it's a probability. Some things will happen, okay? That because certain karma will happen, like for example, if you're supposed to marry somebody, if you're supposed to have certain children or a certain time of death, some things are determined. So I did all those remedies, and after that, I did many other chapters. One thing which is really phenomenal about the Nadi is that I decided to write my next book on the Nadi. And there is another author and enthusiast, a very well-known person. His name is Shashikant Oak, and he's a very well-respected personality in the Nadi, and most Nadi readers know him. And so I was in touch with him, and I said, I want to write my next book on Nadi, and he has already written a book on Nadi. And so he says, no, 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 you must ask the Rishis. So I said, you have their email address? How am I supposed to ask the Rishis? So no, no, you can ask prashna, you can ask questions, you can ask up to 5 questions. And if they wish to answer you, there will be a leaf there with the answers. And the answers obviously are pre-written. So I found that pretty phenomenal. So I called up, he says, contact your Nadi reader and tell him. So I called my Nadi reader and I says, I have 5 questions I want to ask because I want to write a book on Nadi. And he was like, okay, whatever. And he said, he looked up at the clock. It was 10:20 a.m. on, 23rd of May, I believe it was. And I gave him my 5 questions. He noted the time. And then, they make the chart based on the time I asked the questions. And after 2 hours, he messaged me that he's found the leaf. Lo and behold, when the leaf was read, and he showed me the leaf on the camera. The 5 questions were answered in the sequence I had asked them. And these are pre-etched on the leaf. These are very old, brittle leaves and very, small, very fine etching on the leaf. So I was really, really bowled over, like, how is it possible that they know that some woman in 2024 will come along with these 5 questions? It's just mind blowing, right? And exact time, like, I mean, that's crazy, right? I mean, anyway, so the she said, the Shiva, the Rishis, and the 18 Siddhas all give their blessings for you to write this book. And as you write this book, you will not only write about Nadi, but you will learn a lot of things. You'll read a lot of old books. You'll gain a lot of knowledge through writing this book. And you will also evolve spiritually from this journey of writing this book. So that's how my journey started. And from then, I mean, it's been quite a phenomenal journey, which I've written about, because there's so many types of Nadi. My first chapter actually starts with the Jeev Nadi, where there's divination. The leaf is blank, and after you ask a question, the letters will appear on the leaf. Okay, that's sort of supernatural, you would say. But I have experienced it and I verified it, because what appeared on the leaf later appeared in writing in my spiritual chapter. So it verified that what was written, so I used to go across Nadi readers and verify. So this Nadi reader said, oh, you should go to Arunachalam, which is in South India, and meditate there. And then it's a Jeev Nadi, it's just letters appearing on a blank leaf. And then I go to another Nadi reader, and then I say, open my spiritual chapter. And when he opens the spiritual chapter, it says, go to Arunachalam. So it kind of validates that, yes, so therefore this divination that came must be authentic. And so that's what is the first chapter is about. That is my scientific validation that was proven right, that no, this is authentic. I've told you about my first Nadi reading that was there. In my journey that's unfolding is really about many of the other Nadis that were opened, many things that I did, and lot of leaves started appearing, and so my journey sort of started unfolding. And it was about in December of 2024 is when I started when I decided that yes, I should go to India, because it told me that you have to visit these temples as some of the remedies, go and meditate in Arunachalam. So I went to India actually in October of 2025, and that itself is a long story of how this everything became very miraculous in my life, where the Nadi would say, you use your intuition and think about when you should go. And if you doubt your intuition, I'll come and tell you when. And so I thought, well, it must be my birthday. My 60th birthday was in October of 2025. So I said, it must be then. I must be going then on a pilgrimage. And a later Nadi said, yes, you're going to India in October. So all these kind of things, very interesting things that I learned about life, about evolution, about time, about destiny, about something greater than what you see in the material realm, in the mundane. There's a vaster field which is beyond our understanding that is at work here. And my pilgrimage in India was very powerful, because these ancient temples and what I experienced at the Jyotirling, for example, what I experienced in Chidambaram, what I experienced in Swami Malai, and the yajna that I did in Tamil Nadu, and these were, these vibrations can change your genes. And this is proven that vibrations and environment and all that can actually change your bodily structure, is even the brain. So these temples are very, very powerful if you can experience them. So I've described my journey in India, and what started happening from about September of 2025 is that in my Nadi, when I was getting one Nadi read, it started predicting certain serious events that would take place in the world. The first thing that came was that in 2028 there would be a calamity and war, and because of that you would you should get land and north of where you live and start organic farming and feed people, because there would be difficulty in even food. And so I was so taken aback, because I don't know any organic farming, and I'm not sure why I was being told to do this, which is still a mystery. And from then, I asked, like, what is this calamity? What's happening? What's going to happen? And so then it started telling me more and more and more. And not just that, things started coming as hints in other people's nadis as well, because I started helping hundreds, if not thousands of, it started with my friends and family, and then I started helping more and more and more people, but especially my friends, their readings also mentioned similar things. And these are from different readers, it's not from the same reader. So say across 5 Nadi readers, 5 different people are getting similar predictions. It's you can corroborate the information and realize that 5 independent sources. So there was this whole segue into world predictions, not just personal predictions. So all of this stuff that started happening, and then in December of 2025, I asked a prashna about what would happen in 2026, and I was being given incredible amount of information, and it was not being told to others, because when somebody else asked, they weren't being told. So I was wondering, why am I being told? I have no idea. And then I started these YouTube videos. First, I went on somebody else's show as a guest, Craig Hamilton Parker, who's a famous psychic in UK. And the videos are very popular, obviously, world predictions. But then I started, making videos of my own. And the Nadi said, you will warn people, you will save many lives. And that took me into creating more videos on YouTube, and my channel became very popular and things like that. So I started talking about the Nadi, about predictions, but I was trying to put in knowledge and spirituality in there as well, which less people are interested in. So a lot of things about the future that I have documented here in this chapter and also in the appendix. Then the history of the Nadi leaves. See, the Nadi leaves have never really been formally studied in its history. It's very casual, it's verbal. And so I wanted to do a more formal study. I mean, I didn't want to write a research paper or a scientific journal kind of article, but I try to do my best in terms of documenting what was the verbal history from these Nadi readers, which has never been written before. And this is one subject that I can go into, if you like, where what is really the history of the Nadi leaves? Where did it start? How did it go down? What happened? And then during the British, where were the leaves and how did they pass down? What is the dating? And so, I was given one leaf. And, in India, they consider this a sacred text. And so nobody in India has carbon dated a leaf. I mean, it's unbelievable, but I mean, if something like this existed in the West, everybody would be researching it to nth degree and having hundreds of documentaries on it. Look at how many documentaries you have on Jesus, and there's nothing on the Nadi, absolutely. So I carbon dated my leaf, and so I've written about that, how the carbon dating of my leaf put it about 250 years old. And then there's only one other person who has carbon dated his leaf. He's a German author and researcher. And his leaf was 350 years old. So all of this stuff that I've documented also into a more formal way in this chapter. And then the other thing is, because, like I said, I'm more scientific bent of mine. I didn't want to really write case studies because that would really bore the readers and doesn't really capture the interest. But people love stories. And so I didn't do like a formal case studies, which with that kind of format. But then I wrote them like case stories. And these are real stories. And I took one because I knew I collected about 100 case studies, really. But what I did is I chose one from each category. I categorized those 100 case studies. And then from there, I said, okay, one where people have done a remedy, one where people have not done a remedy, one for this, one for health issue and all that. So I've written these stories about real cases, obviously not used real names. And that's what I've put it here. And also some famous people who've had their Nadi read, what their story has been. I wrote that there. Now, like the rishis had said, that you will learn a lot and you will read a lot and you will evolve as well. After doing all of this about my Nadi story, how I came upon it, what happened, blah, 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 world predictions and history, I had to put down this knowledge. And the second half of my book is really more on knowledge, on esoteric knowledge, and also on deeper spiritual secrets. So, of course, I will start with Shiva because he is really the deity behind, or the I wouldn't say God, but the supreme, from where all these messages emerge. And it's the sages who receive these messages ultimately from the Supreme. And then, their disciples will write it as they speak, as they're getting the messages and they're speaking, and their disciples will write it. So, my first chapter was to honor him or her or it, but Shiva. And then I grew a lot of devotion for his older son, Kartikeya, and I wanted to write about him, and especially for the North Indians who have somehow forgotten this son of Shiva, which is also the guru of all the Siddhas. So the Siddhas consider Kartikeya as their guru, and I wrote about him and certain secrets, knowledge about who he is, and how he's very important today in Kali Yuga. Then I went into the Rishis and wrote about the Rishis. And Rishis have been well written as well in many books, but of course I had to honor them. So I had, because they are the ones who are writing these Nadi predictions. So I wrote about the Rishis. And then this is where I started to deep dive into the Siddhas, which the Siddhas are more honored in South India. The Siddhas and the Rishis sort of overlap, like certain Siddhas can be considered Rishis, like for example, Agastya. He's a Saptarishi as well, but he's also considered a Siddha. There are many, many, many Siddhas, but there are 18 which are considered sort of the Maha Siddhas, the highest of the highest grade. There are 18. And in South India, they're well known, but in North India and other parts of the world, they're relatively hidden. Now, the Tamil knowledge has been very protected and very closed to the non-Tamil world. And so getting to this knowledge is not easy because most of the books are still in Tamil. They are not being translated to English. There's one teacher, Kriya teacher, Marshall Govindan, who's written a very a legendary book, I would say. It's called Babaji and the 18 Siddhas. And I had grown some contacts in the Tamil spiritual network. And this lady who has written a book of Agastya, she introduced me to somebody, and then I chanced upon this book, Babaji and the 18 Siddhas. That was really like opening a can of worms. I mean, literally, it was not a treasure chest, I would say. So I opened this treasure chest and I was like so wowed by what I read. It was phenomenal. And then, because Marshall Govindan is an American and he's deep into the Siddha tradition, and because of an Indian guru, and he teaches Kriya, he got a lot of these texts, not a lot, but some of these texts translated using these scholars, these Tamil scholars. One of the main ones is T.N. Ganapati, who's no more, unfortunately. So I started reading all these ancient books, Tamil books, which had been translated and uncovered so much. But there are certain secrets about these siddhas which has never been written in English. They're in Tamil, and they're very closed to a very, very small group of people. You see, we understand enlightenment as something, where even a rishi would, an enlightened rishi in India would be buried under the ground. His body would be taken and given samadhi, and then, you cover him. You don't cremate an enlightened being. But the Siddha said, that a sign of moksha is one who does not leave a body behind on the planet. And there are many saints, like you'll hear of Mirabai who disappeared, of Kabir where they opened, they found flowers, of even Guru Nanak, of many other saints who actually literally disappeared at death, or the Buddhist monks whose bodies shrink, shrink, shrink and just disappear, or just hair and nails. So I uncovered this huge thing about, how these saints have real life stories where their bodies disappeared. And then I correlated with the Jesus where, he ascended, and this whole thing that Jesus was nothing but a Siddha. Then I correlated this to the Buddhist monks and real stories. And that is another segue that I can take you into, because I have prepared two. One is on the Siddhas, and I can explain this to you how, these Siddhas and these Rishis, and, I have prepared like a short slideshow on, what these Siddhas are and stories about them. Briefly, I can go over that as well. And these are the 18 Siddhas that I'm talking about. So that is another segue that I can take you into. But so I have written about this whole light body, that they have given the entire methodology and the path, just like yoga, Ashtanga yoga, they have given the path of how to attain a light body. Of course, Mirabai didn't have all this yoga. Through her devotion and her knowledge and her purity and surrender. So there are many paths to attaining the light body, but the Siddhas have perfected it. And I've documented how there is British government documentation on this saint of the late 19th century who disappeared into light, and how it was documented by the British investigators and the local DM, and there was a court case, the court case records are there about how he became a light body and disappeared. And then, this chapter is going from all this secret knowledge about the Siddhas and the light body and about all these other traditions that also have this. Then I go into more about the Siddhas themselves, the stories about the Siddhas and who they were, and their knowledge, and how so much of this knowledge is hidden still and people don't know anything about it. So I brought some of that ancient knowledge out into this book, which is very, very rare. And then there's appendices, which I didn't want to bore readers with, very reference material. So I put all that reference material kind of here in the appendices, and which are very, very important part of the book. So, where in the chapter on world predictions, it's more of a narrative rather than, like just like listing of this thing. In the appendix, I have literally written it like a listing: 2026, 2027, 2028, what's going to happen September, October, December. So like an almanac. So those are there. Then there's certain Nadi FAQs for people who want to know, like have questions, often, questions about Nadi. So I've written a chapter on that, or appendix on that. The benefits of reading a Nadi, like why on earth should I even get a Nadi reading? The types of Nadis, which has never been documented before, a list of, so then I work with the Nadi community, Nadi readers, Nadi experts, and I collected all the different types of Nadis, all the Rishis, all the Devatas, all their, so many, even Devis, all the different types. It's like collecting all the Rishis and all the texts that they wrote, not just the Rig Veda, not just the Puranas, not just this, but I've collected all the Rishis, all the Devatas, all of these people who have written all these palm leaf manuscripts. So I've documented those types of nadis, and then the chapters, because the nadi is like a book, which many chapters, the first, and it correlates very similarly to the Jyotish, where the first chapter is a summary, second chapter is about family, third chapter is about siblings, fourth chapter is about house and mother, fifth is about children. So it follows the same format because they are the same authors as Jyotish, right? So the Nadi that they have written is personal predictions, but it's also based on Jyotish. So that is my book, and we're almost 40 minutes into, but I would love for you to tell me where you would like to go from here, and I can take you into question and answer. If you want to know deeper about Nadi history, I can do that. If you want to learn more about the Siddhas, I can do that. So I'll give the
Excellent.
floor
So
to you.
Vinita, thank you so far. So first, I want to intervene for a few minutes and then maybe we'll take questions and then you can talk about some of the other material. So
Mhm.
first off, thank you for writing this. I had heard about Nadis kind of tangentially, but I really didn't know what they were. And the way you fell upon it was amazing. It is kind of the journey I've been going through in my life. I mean, I grew up here in America. My parents came in the US in the 60s,
Mhm.
and I didn't have any kind of like formal religious spiritual training or anything like that. It just you go through life and you discover, and sometimes things fall in your lap, right? You weren't looking for Nadi, just it fell in your lap. And you approached it with a little bit of skepticism, which we all should. Not cynicism, but skepticism, right? So you had some false readings and you were looking for once again, you have the kind of analytical mind. I also have engineering background, so I was looking for, is there any data behind this? And so this has impacted a lot of times people ask me things like, well, do you believe in the soul? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in reincarnation? And I always answer kind of maybe a little bit forthright. I say, I don't believe in anything. If there's evidence, it exists, and in my opinion, it's a fact. If not, it doesn't. And that's just the way I treat it. So I say all those things I just mentioned, those are facts. And Nadi, once again, I think through what you've shown, and I probably need to do more research myself, it looks amazing. I mean, some of the things you described, like you said, were supernatural and hard to imagine. And I've got to believe that it's not so much just what is written on them, but it's maybe the interpretation of it or kind of reading through it. Because how would somebody thousands of years know about you today or me today? It seems bizarre. So I mean, you still must be coming to grips with that now, 1 or 2 years later. How is that possible?
So, the thing is, science doesn't hasn't investigated supernatural things yet. Even it can measure that how much you're thinking, how much activity is in the mind, but what you're thinking cannot be proven from the mind. So science is very good for anything that can be measured, but it's not good yet for anything that cannot be measured. Like it cannot tell you how much love are you feeling for your mother, what emotions are you feeling. It may take the hormones and those kind of things to say, yes, you're having an angry reaction because of these, that. But what are you feeling? How much are you feeling? That human part of it hasn't been there. And even beyond the feelings, where is the source? Science can say, yes, this is, dark matter, dark and, dark energy, but how, why, what it can explain, how it cannot explain yet. Okay.
Yeah.
So we ourselves, as we start attaining certain abilities, will start understanding the abilities of the siddhas. Till the time that we attain those abilities, we can only guess. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like
Right.
somebody's telling you, I had this experience. Oh, great. You listen to them. But till you have that experience, you don't understand truly what that experience was. So,
Yeah.
yes, I have certain guesses. I have certain theories because, I have also a spiritual side, right? I'm a scientist, but I also have a spiritual side. And I meditate and I get certain intuitions, and those intuitions come correct. Or I will say, somebody shows me or tells me about a person, and I said, this person's having health issues. I think it's the heart, la, la, la. Now, I don't know this person. Sometimes they don't even tell me the name. And then they say, yeah, how do you know? So, because of my own intuition, I can extrapolate that and say, well, if my intuition, which is like so small, I mean, the sages must be transcending time. And then you get into quantum physics, really,
Yeah.
because you're
Exactly.
transcending time and matter. So, if you can transcend time and space, is when you can understand. You see, when you can transcend the material realm, you can always, you've mastered it. So then it's like a ball in your hand. You can do whatever you want because you've mastered it. We are still subject to it. So we cannot really do anything outside of those boundaries. But they have
Yeah, and like when you mentioned science, the level of science we have is a very low level of science. We have a long way to go. And so that's why if we say that, well, science can't explain it, we need to qualify it and say that our level of science can't explain it. But there
Yeah.
will come a day when our level of science is much higher, and then all this will make sense. So,
I think it'll be spiritual science. I don't think it'll be science as we know it today. I think it will be very similar to how the Rishis were. They were spiritual scientists. And quantum physics, quantum mechanics is sort of like that spooky science, you know? It is sort of on the trajectory of spiritual science. And the closest we have come to understanding these things is quantum physics. We can't, with classical physics, we can't understand this.
right, very good. So, anyone on attending have any questions at this time? We have a few people on here. Would anyone like to ask a question?
Uh, Not a question per se, but I thought since this was a review, so I borrowed a framework from one of my friends, and it strips the like dislike binary. It's just certain themes which I kind of gelled with, and some questions, so to say, I had, as in the Shaivite passages. So the specific inclusion of Shaivite elements uh, impacted me because it grounded the esoteric concepts in certain cultural reality. Apart from that, the Arunachala mountain descriptions were also fascinating because the physical description of the mountain acted as a strong visual anchor. And I was reminded of one of the books I've read of Dr. Makarand Paranspe. Apart from the uh, famous texts Madam mentioned, which I've read, Marshall Govindan and the autobiography of a yogi part, and the author's personal reflections. So the deep reverence for the tradition was evident. And as a neophyte, what to the domain of Nadi astrology, uh, as in I did a certain course on Vedic astrology last year, so some of the concepts were clear to me, but clearly to this new and fascinating subject, I am a neophyte. So I needed the pacing in the highly detailed sections to be slightly brisker because lingering too long uh, kind of uh, made it a little momentum was lacking in my perception. And as a sort of skeptical reader, I do believe in certain traditions. That is why I've read through. But I needed, say, more, say, structured or convincing arguments which would help me understand the rationality and the methodology behind the whole uh, this whole sub domain, so to speak. And uh, I guess those were certain points I wanted to share. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, if I may have a response, I think you said that you like more structured or detailed and it was too brisk in parts of the Nadi astrology. And honestly, the Nadi was a conduit for the spiritual knowledge that followed. So, as such, the story of the Nadi is what I have written. And in the appendix and all this stuff, I've described it. And I didn't want this to be a book about Nadi. I wanted to grip the users first by my personal story first, and then be exciting enough to take them forward. It was sort of like a carrot to take them into deeper knowledge. So yes, I had to choose between writing more about technical study. If you want to read a more detailed study, my friend who runs another, he's a European, and he runs a Nadi Institute where he does Nadi readings, and I can send you his book, which is a very good complement to my book, and he's written purely on Nadi astrology, and you can read that. But that was really not the objective. The objective and the climax of the book is really the Siddhas, the chapter on the Siddhas.
Excellent. And we have a hand raised. Nisha, you have a question?
Hi, yeah. I just wanted to say the book was really, really very interesting. Um, and for someone who has a similar background to, I think, Raj, where I was born and brought up outside of India, not coming from a very structured religious upbringing, I suppose you could say. I did have a question that kind of followed up from the last speaker, and that was um, uh, the light body chapter is the one that I found almost most interesting. I came through Advaita and devotion myself, and Aurobindo is my mother's lineage, so this is quite close to home for me. In your chapter 11, you talked about Aurobindo and the mother not having reached permanent light body, but in the next chapter, a Siddha voice names him among the Siddhas whose transformation was completed. How do you hold those two together?
Sorry, in the next chapter, I say what? In chapter 12?
That that a Siddha voice names him among the Siddhas whose transformation was completed.
I'll have to look up that reference. I don't remember, but the chapter 12. So I can't answer that question completely because perhaps I've forgotten it myself. But no, I'm not to say whether his journey was completed or not, but the Siddhas and all the Siddhas mention that if you become a Siddha, not that your journey is complete. See, your journey, so there are many variations, right? Like when people say you've attained moksha, people don't even understand the definition of moksha, first of all, right? So there is one aspect where, your karma are resolved and you don't have to take birth again. That is not moksha. That means you don't have rebirth. But you can choose to come back. You can go to some other planet. You can do whatever you like, but you have not merged back into that oneness. Okay? And when you do merge back into that oneness, what happens is your own identity on the physical, subtle, causal jiva as an individual soul is erased completely. And when that happens, you cannot have a body. You become light. And that is what the Siddhas are. Now, even if they are light beings, they can manifest a body because they have superseded the laws of creation. But Aurobindo, even though he had finished his karma, right? In that sense, he had gained liberation from karma, but he's not a Siddha because he definitely left a body behind. So it may be alluding to that. But he tried very hard to attain a light body.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else have any questions?
Or anything else I can go over again if you like me to go over, even if it's not a question.
Well, maybe
I've got
here we
another
go.
question, just kind
Okay.
of on your whole journey. You talked about this your journey as a Leela staged for your scientific mind.
Yes.
Where for you did proof stop mattering, and where is it that you surrender? Where did surrender feel like a conclusion or a choice?
You know, my nature itself is of surrender, right? But it's also very, very scientific because I'd like, once I know it's the truth, then I can surrender. I don't like to just surrender without knowing and using my discernment. I think by 2025 mid, when this whole pilgrimage to India was coming about, I would describe it as, you know, I was rowing a boat very hard, you know. I'm like, yes, I gotta find this and I gotta prove this. I gotta have case studies. I've got to prove to the world that this is scientific, la da 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 da. And I was rowing, rowing, rowing. And then it's like the Supreme is smiling at me. And then when things just started unfolding, I pulled in the oars and I'm sitting on this boat and the boat is just going down the river. And that's when I realized everything is just happening. I'm rowing, but it's not my rowing that's moving the boat down the river. Even when I pull the oars in, the boat is still going down the river. So actually, everything is just happening, happening, happening. And I'm just like in awe, like this child is in awe. Like, how is this possible? What is going on?
That's a beautiful analogy. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Sometimes things in life happen completely unplanned, and that's what we feel like it was meant to be. Someone has their hand up. I don't know who their name is. They just says
Yeah,
Samsung.
hi. Hi, I'm Pooja. Can I please ask for if it's okay for you to share your email ID? So if there is any further doubts, we can get in touch with you if it's possible.
Yes, of course. And I can put in the chat, but I guess you were not on the
Oh, sorry. I joined late. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, in that email group that we had, I guess you were not there. There was an email group. So this is my personal email ID, KRISNS.Vinita@gmail.com. And I'd be happy to help any of you find your Nadi leaf if you'd like to experience.
KRISNS. Okay.
KRISNS dot.
KRISNS.
Yes, I put it in the chat. Can you see it?
Oh, okay. Let me just. Okay. Uh, not. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got it. Thank you.
Yes. So if any of you would like, my help in finding a lardy leaf, I'd be more than happy to help you to experience it for yourself.
Excellent. We're getting
And
towards the
where,
top. Yes.
yeah, where in India, like, did you find the real? Because I don't know, because it's such a beautiful science and it is getting extinct. So where did you find the real people who know the real stuff? Like, there may be many. We will get to, maybe we go to a wrong person or something like that. So, how did you investigate that bit? Like, if you can.
Yeah, so now I know many, many, many Nadi readers, right? And they know me because I'm so heavily involved. But to differentiate between a fake reader and a real reader is that they should only ask you for your thumb impression. Even if you contact them on WhatsApp, you can remove your name from your profile and just send them and don't give them any information, even when they're searching for the leaf. You don't have to give them anything. And they will, if they find the bundles and they go on video and say, here's the bundle, and you see the actual leaves, and then they start reading from the leaf, you will know that this is an authentic Nadi reader.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. We're getting to the top of the hour. Any final questions? Okay, looks like I'm not hearing anything. So now I guess my question is, I don't know if we have the ability to go slightly over if people do want to discuss, or if you want to talk about the other presentation that you have briefly.
So I'm not sure what people would like. Let me, so I will, I will show you this, which I feel really is the crux of the book, is the Siddhas. And it talks about the Siddhas, the superpowers, because, the other presentation is much longer. It's on very, like a archaeology kind of study of the history of Nadi. But this is about the spiritual side of it. And the siddhis are described very well in many of the texts, and the transforming of the physical body to this light body is not discussed very often in any of the existing texts, which is very rare. You will not find this very common. And the the purpose of life being that these rishis they came here as service to others, to help us, not to show their superpowers, but use their knowledge, their abilities really in service of creation, of the planet, of humans. These are some of the ones that I have taken as samples. Now, Ramalinga Swamigal is a documented case in the British archives. You can go find it, that he did not have a shadow. There was a photographer that went from Chennai, and that time the taking a photograph was a very involved process. And this is in the late 19th century. And, they took 10 photographs of him, nothing came. This is similar to other people, in saints, that their photos don't come. But he did not have a shadow. This is documented by thousands of people who knew him. And this is late 19th century. He did not have a shadow. That's why he used to cover himself from head to toe with a cloth. Otherwise, you won't see him. And he covered his head, because if he just covered his body, you'd be like a headless person walking around. But you could touch him, you could feel him. He used to eat to try and be normal, but they didn't need food. And then, he did not breathe. He didn't need to breathe. So this is a living example of a light body person. He's very well known in South India. And then he disappeared and into a divine flame. That's also very well documented. There's eyewitnesses. There were all those testimonies were written down by the British government, because it was put in the Chennai High Court that there's a disappearance, and then police went there, and this DM was involved, and so on and so forth. Now, then I talk about Jesus and his transfiguration on the mountain where he glowed. And so I've taken references from the Bible, because I've studied, like I said, comparative religion. So I know about the Bible and Jesus in great depth. And then Mahavatar Babaji, of course, who's still a living light body, and many people have experienced him. He's probably one of the only light body siddhas who is still on the planet and still being experienced. And I know people firsthand who have told me their stories and have interacted with him. Now, there's a Frenchman, he has documented the case of Khenpo Achu, where his body disappeared. He went to Tibet and Nepal and various other places. Now, these are all the Buddhist monks that have eyewitness accounts of where at death their body starts shrinking. Either it'll disappear, or they'll have only hands, only hair or nails, and or they've seen this rainbow colored light come out as they as the body starts disappearing. They see these rainbow colored lights coming out from their body, and they disappear. And their practice, the great perfection, is nothing but really that which came from the Siddhas. So even Francis Tisu, he talks about how this came from Shaivism, in fact. So this sort of was, Buddhism took a lot of, obviously, the knowledge from the Vedic or the Hindu things, and also this light body concept, which is practiced in Tibet, came from this basis. The same basis was there from the Mahasiddhas. And then T.N. Ganapati, I would like to honor a lot, and I put his thing here, and where this one sentence summarizes the process of how you go from a physical body to a yoga deha, to a siddha deha, to a pranav or a vibrational body, and finally the light body. So this is the process, and for each stage they defined this is where you do yoga, this is where you do meditation, this is where you chant mantras, this is where you do the pranayama or the kriyas and this and that, to obviously to purify and purify and purify. And then how your body starts becoming more from matter, it becomes vibration. And that is there in his books as well. And then the Siddhas I have put here as Agastya, who's the foremost. He's the most revered of the Siddhas is Agastya. And then Bogar, you must read about Bogar. Bogar was actually Lao Tzu. And this story is documented in Bogar's own book of how he went there. His guru was already there. His guru called him to China, and how he took up a body of an old Chinese to be able to speak in Chinese, and all of this stuff about Lao Tzu and Tao, and all the history and documented stuff, and how these Siddhas went to South America. And this that you see, candelabra that you see, is not only mentioned in the Ramayana, but it's also documented by the Siddhas that they went to South America. And then to correlate it from the South American perspective, the South American, these older, the Aztec, not the Aztecs, sorry.
Inca?
The Incas talk about these sages that came from the ocean in this great giant boat and taught them the calendar, taught them certain herb and medicine and all of this stuff. So it correlates from both sides that there were people that came from there. And then Tirumular, he's another very well-known Siddha, and this transmigration that they could do, where they could leave their body and go into the body of another person who has just passed. And this is also with Shirdi Sai Baba. It's well documented, where they can manifest another body, leave their body, go there. And then I document some of these other stories about Shankaracharya and all these other people a yogi who has transcended the matter, the physical body and matter, the 5 elements, can transmigrate their soul. So we also don't know that Tirumular also has the Ashtanga Yoga, and they had the same guru. So Patanjali and Tirumular were disciples of the same guru. So he also, in the Tirumantiram, which nobody reads, is a phenomenal text, and chapter 3 is on Ashtanga Yoga. So all of this stuff is all in my book, and these are the 18 Siddhas. So some of them overlap with the Rishis, like Patanjali and Agastya and all that, but these are the 18 gurus. Like I said, they had the same guru, Patanjali, and both them, their guru was Nandi. Nandi was a Siddha who was a great disciple of Shiva, and he's portrayed as the bull that is staring, always focusing. And I've revealed certain secrets even about Nandi in my book and what that signifies. What does Nandi signify? So a lot of information. I hope you read the book, not for me, but to learn about all this stuff that is out there that is quite unbelievable, but also something that would help you as well, I feel. So that's one presentation I had. I'm also now, I've been made I was chosen by the Heritage Foundation of India, which works with the Government of India, Ministry of Culture, and they've recognized me as a scholar and made me a director for the US chapter because of all my research in the Nadi. So I gave a talk in their world conference and I gave the history of the Nadi and all of this. I'd be happy to share this slide deck with you if you'd like to see what I spoke about, and the script, if you want to learn about the script and all of this stuff. But again, all of this is also in my book if you buy it, but I'd be happy to share this as well.
Excellent. That's fascinating stuff. Fascinating. Anyone else have any questions? Looks like one person's unmuted here.
I had a question, sorry to interject. I've read in some texts that the Siddhis or the display of the Siddhis is actually an impediment to the final, as in salvific goal of moksha. So is that true in the case of the Siddhas, or are they like the Bodhisattvas? They are helping everybody along the path. And secondly, you mentioned comparative religion. So I was wondering, as in the Judeo-Christian world, does the Kabbalah tradition have mystics like this, or are they only in the Indic ecosystem?
No,
As
no,
in you
no.
mentioned,
This is
as in you mentioned, Bogar became Lao Tzu and all of that.
Lao Tzu, yes. Okay, so second question first. No, so obviously this is a human phenomena, right? It's not something which is only with Hindus or Indians or something. Can happen to anyone. It's not just a Siddha path. Like I said, many saints in India also disappeared, right? And became Siddhas. Siddhas means you have a light body, right? Siddhas means you have those perfections which are called Siddhis. And Siddhis with anything in life, not just Siddhis, but anything, anything that you do, anything that you have, anything that you are, the intention is more important, not what you say or what you do. And the litmus test is it service to others or is it service to self? Whether it's with politicians, with gurus, with anyone. Is it for greater good or is it for your own ego? And siddhis in itself is not something, but now if siddhis are used for egoic purposes, then they will start dying out. They will slowly, you're withdrawing from the bank and it'll have side effects because you're doing it for your own ego.
Very good. Nisha, you had your hand raised?
Sorry, I've got one more question. A last question. You said earlier that the future turns on collective karma. And Aurobindo's insight was that the body's light transformation also needs a collective threshold first.
Yes.
So I wonder, do you see a moment coming where this stops being the rare achievement of just individual siddhas and becomes something a little bit more collective?
Yes, and he predicted that, right? He predicted that. So the Nadi said that this time that of my life, many people would attain enlightenment because they don't want to come back. So I was not given 100% answer, but I feel there will be a global awakening in our age. It doesn't mean that Kali Yuga is coming to an end. If you read my book, it says clearly, no, 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 Kali Yuga is not coming to an end. But yes, there is sort of a partial dissolution, my video was frozen. So it's called Khand Pralay, a mini sort of destructive period that we're entering. And that's why a lot of souls who wanted to come at this time was to transform, to serve, but also to attain liberation. Now, whether we'll have a lot of people who would attain the light body, I don't know. But my guess is, yes, there will be. It won't be a huge number. I don't know what number. But my sense is that that would happen. It would happen probably closer to the time of passing that they may disappear. That's my guess. And, Aurobindo also saw that. But, everything is a probability. So we don't know. Certain things are destined. What is destined? We don't know. We can only do the best we can, right?
Thanks.
Mm. So I also have guests waiting for me. We have to go, but I'd be happy to continue with individual conversations after this. You can reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to any of you. And I really am very happy and honored and grateful for giving me the platform to bring this as in service to the Rishis to take this to the world.
Vinita, on behalf of everybody, I want to thank you. Excellent book, and I'm glad we had some attendance and some good questions. I personally will contact you afterwards. And thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for this.
Thank you.